Hello! Hello!
Not Mrs. Doubtfire.
But my grandpa used to beat himself with nettles to try and avoid arthritis.
Right.
I mean...
I can't remember how we tried it. Did someone send us some? I can't even remember. Ugh, did not like it. But anyway, look.
But he died of a heart attack. Hopefully that didn't happen while he was beating
Whilst he
himself
was
with the
beating
nettles.
himself with the nettles.
I've got 2 new ones this time that I've not used before. Well, I have because I've trialled them.
But no, Dan's brilliant at making playlists, right? You've done it all of your life, haven't you?
Folks, do not listen to stupid Apple put together its own...
He drives this, I think it's a Porsche Carrera. Do you know the 4x... Not 4x4, the you know what I mean, the 4-wheel one. 4-wheel? Of course it's 4-wheel.
And it drives Dan mad when I press shuffle on it. So if I press shuffle on a playlist that he's done, he's like...
It's like sacrilege. Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring the Yarny Book Club.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. And can you believe it? It's the penultimate episode of the series.
It absolutely is.
I mean, now that's shocking.
I know, it does seem to have gone quick.
What a series it's been.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what? The thing that I've loved the most about this Yarny Book Club series is the fact that with each of the books, you've actually gone into deeply what the book is. And you've dyed up a colourway that's actually inspired by something that appealed to you within the book.
Yes.
It'd be so easy to just like dye up from the front cover of a book or something.
I guess so. Yeah. I think it's easy to get drawn in by the cover of a book, isn't it? And I've done that. And the cover of the book this time is lovely.
Yes, yes.
And there is a slight element of that in one of the colourways. That I've dyed today.
2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, there is a slight element today of the book cover thing, but I try not to get distracted by the cover of the book. The reason being, actually, is because I mainly listen to my books, so I don't often see the covers.
Yeah.
So
the thing is, though,
I really want to dye a colour that is reflective of the story in the book, you know, rather than what the book looks like on a shelf.
And if you're a creative person, surely you want to create the colourway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just take...
No, but that is right. Yeah, you know, that is right. And, you know, I do buy the physical book so that I can show it and talk about it. Yeah. But that's after I've already read it with my ears. Somebody's going to have to come up with a word for that.
No, they aren't.
Maybe it's just listened.
Just chillax.
Okay.
I hate that. It's like the worst. Please don't ever say that to me.
I don't think I've ever said that to you.
No, and I'll never say that to you.
I think Bryony says it sometimes.
Yes, but only in jest. It's not a genuine word that's in her.
No, she'll say it if she's joking around.
There's
just
a word for
that. Chillax, Dad.
The eagle-eyed of you may notice. Yes, it is a big summer for us. We mentioned it already because our daughter Bryony is transitioning from her schooling into her university life, and so it's a big summer, lots going on, lots of sort of changes taking place, lots of learning going on, learning how to clean the house the other day. That was very cool.
It's teaching Bryony how to clean a bathroom. She was riveted, as you can imagine, and fairly grossed out at the thought of having to clean a toilet, but do you know what? We all have to do it, don't we?
Welcome to the real world.
Rubber gloves are your friend, that's what I said to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have, though, been having a tidy. And you may notice things have changed.
We've had a bit of... Yeah, can you see? Look how lovely it is back there now.
Oh, yes. And there's some new additions to the backdrop.
Yes.
That is the Star Wars ship which inspired my love of collecting Star Wars, and that is the Tantive 4.
Yeah.
And then there's also a Lancaster bomber.
Lancaster bomber.
Oh, yes. In fact, it's so cool, he needs to come down.
Oh, look how lovely it is.
Oh, yes.
It's a die-cast one, so it's metal. And its wheels go round, and its little propellers go round.
Look, it spins.
We have become those people.
Yes.
Who are like the nerds.
Well, definitely, because I even have on
when
my
you see
Elvington
tour
t-shirt.
groups going round.
Yes.
That's us.
Elvington 1944-45.
I bought down a t-shirt when we went to Elvington Museum. Yeah.
That we mentioned last time. Remember we showed you the pictures?
Yes.
Now, you must just say about that brilliant programme we just watched with Guy Martin.
The Guy Martin one.
Yes. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, we've watched all of the sort of World War II themed Guy Martin episodes that he's done now. But we were looking around for another one yesterday, and Dan spotted one which was around the Vulcan bomber.
Last flight of the Vulcan bomber.
The last flight of the Vulcan bomber, which took place in, was it
2015?
Was it 2015?
Yeah.
And it was the story of this particular Vulcan bomber, which was the last one that was flying.
That's right.
And the sort of story behind how it got into the ownership of the person who, took it over and, followed its journey into its last flight. It's grounded now. It was just brilliant. And that plane is just unbelievable. And, it was designed by the same man who designed the Lancaster bomber.
Yes.
And only
Roy Chadwick.
Yeah, only about
Great name.
5-6 years after the end of the war.
Yes.
And the difference between a Lancaster bomber and a Vulcan bomber, it's like a spaceship.
Yes.
And you can understand it when they were maybe test flying this thing. People might have thought it was a UFO because it looks like a UFO.
It's a brilliant programme because it delves into the history a little bit too, which is really interesting. So gets into the Cold War, why it came about, what it was used for.
Really interesting.
Talks about some of its missions. But the thing that I enjoyed the most, I think, was that guy who came to test fly it.
Yeah.
Who came in his 3-piece suit because he said that
back in the day.
Yes. And that's what he wore. He didn't wear a flight suit.
No, he didn't.
No pinstripe.
Yeah, he did because he said
the cockpit should be as clean as an office or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
And
really
then you saw him in the air. You saw him in the air, and he's spinning it. You said he's flying it like a Spitfire.
It really was. That thing was doing loops and turns and unbelievable, and it makes the best noise in the world.
Oh,
the jet engines just
insane.
Make this sort of howling noise. It's so cool.
And what was so cool was so its last flight, they flew it all around the country.
They did, yeah.
And they flew through the Lake District.
They did, really low.
And was it there? No, it wasn't there. It was the factory where it was built.
Yeah.
He said, let's put on some noise and give them a show.
Yeah.
And he umps the engines.
Revved
and it's
the engines.
and
there was, all around the route. So it went from Ducks. No, it wasn't. It was in Doncaster. And it's still in Doncaster. This is what's so weird. It's at Robin Hood Airport in Doncaster, which is really close to my sort of neck of the woods where I grew up. It's very random, but that's where it is. So it flew from there, went up to Scotland, all the way around, down the lakes, over London and back up again, didn't it? And there's everywhere, people were just like cheering and just looking at it. Fantastic programme if you're interested in that sort of thing.
Amazon.
It's not on Amazon. We did have to buy it, I think.
And also we watched the Battle of Britain.
But it wasn't very expensive.
We watched the Battle of Britain, which is a 2-parter.
Another Guy Martin.
Which was stupendous.
That was brilliant.
Highly, highly recommended.
Yeah, and this is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
We've seen him flying lots of different planes now, haven't we? And learning how to fly. And all of the people, the instructors, said he was brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. He had a real aptitude for it.
Yeah.
And could have been a fighter pilot, in the war.
Superb. Look, we have copious amounts of knitting to share.
Yes, we do.
And also some cross-stitch to see later on in the show.
Yes.
It's rather cool.
Bryony's finished a piece and it's amazing.
So look, to get to all of that, I need to say this. Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Yes, indeed. So, my first project is a new cast-on.
Exciting.
Yes. And it's very pink. I'm in a pink mood. Let's face it, you all know I'm always in a pink mood because it's the best colour in the world.
I like pink.
I know that Jen agrees with me, and lots of people out there.
Jen is, of course, our wonderful Knitability editor, who's just put together the best issue ever of Knitability, our 50th issue.
Yes.
Amazing work with a stupendous interview with Tin Can Knit.
Oh, yes.
We had interviewed, funnily enough, we did do a few interviews on the show.
Yeah, we did.
Susan B. Anderson.
Yes.
Which was just crazy. Also Tin Can Knit.
Yes.
Which was just amazing. This is, I think, back in 2016.
Yeah.
So it's just wonderful. 50th issue, first time, actually, to welcome Tin Can Knit to Knitability. But
brilliant.
Look, I've digressed.
So this project is very pink. It's a new pair of socks, and it's a new pair of socks for Dan.
Oh.
And they're pink.
Oh.
Do you know what I just thought? Because Dan will wear socks any colour. He's not bothered, And I really wanted to knit him a pair of socks in this particular yarn because he loves this yarn. We both love this yarn, and it dawned on me that he didn't have a pair of socks knitted out of it. Right. So I went in my stash and I just happened to have pink.
Come on.
It just happened that way. I've popped it actually into a bag that I made a while ago. It's my Wizard of Oz themed bag, but it seemed to match quite nicely with the dark pink sections of these flowers, which I presumably must be the poppies. So with these socks, I'll tell you the yarn first of all, and you'll all go, oh, of course. No shock. It is, of course, Regia Merino Yak in this amazing pink.
Looks gorgeous.
It's just lovely. This yarn comes in these kind of ball type skeins. I
wonder how they create those.
I know. Well, is it on a...
Nostopina.
Yeah, because you could... It's got to be like on a Nostopina type thing, hasn't it? But it's this fantastic pink, and the colour is 07524. So it's a Regia Merino Yak. And it's gorgeous. So, we've spoken about this yarn so many times before, but quite rightly, because it's great yarn. It's 58% merino, 28% polyamide and 14% yak. So the yak gives it, well, it does two things to it. I think the yak fibre is a slightly darker fibre, so it always gives a sort of heathery look to it. But it also adds a bit of softness, but it's not prickly at all. So don't be worried if you don't like alpaca, which I can't wear alpaca. It's not like that. There's no prickle at all. It's just really lovely, hard-wearing yarn. So, yes, I wanted to knit him a pair of socks, and these are a bit of an amalgamation, and there's a bit of a story to them, as there is to everything on it, isn't there? Apparently. So I wanted to knit him a pair of socks, and because we just visited this air museum and, we're still in this whole World War II thing and loving all the aeroplanes and all of that, I wanted to knit him a pair of socks that in my head I was calling flight socks. The sorts of socks, that you would put on under your boots if you... Did they wear boots? I think they did wear boots, didn't they, in the World War II when they went flying?
Yeah, yes.
Because it was freezing cold, wasn't it, up in the aeroplanes? Yeah. Absolutely freezing cold. So, yeah, I wanted them to be this pair of socks that he could wear when he was flying. And because they're pink, I think that's fun, isn't it? That no one would know he's got pink socks on underneath his, smart World War II uniform. So it just adds that bit of a fun element. So I'm calling these my flight socks. And I designed a textured stitch pattern because I wanted these to be a sock that felt really hard wearing and sturdy, would be good for flying at altitude, and also would be really comfortable to wear. So I wanted sturdy but sort of stretchy as well. So I came up with something and I really love it. So I'll show you the sock and then I'm going to tell you, because I think I am going to make this into a design, but I've got other yarn in mind for that. So here's the sock so far. I've just finished the leg. So I've done a 2x2 rib for, I think I did 15 rounds there, and then I've done 40 rounds for the leg. Dan doesn't like his socks super long, so I either do them, I don't think I ever do them more than 50 rounds for the leg. But 40 seemed a nice in-between because these will probably be finished going into the autumn, I would have thought, so it seemed about right. So you can see it's got this lovely textured, if I hold it close there, lovely textured stitch pattern on that flows from the rib really nicely. And as is the way with, pretty much all of my sock designs, it's a sort of straightforward pattern to knit, but it creates a fabric it looks way more complicated than it is. It's really, a beginner could knit this, but it's got a good amount of lateral stretch, if that's the right word, horizontal stretch, but because it's sort of based on a rib, it's nice, it's really nice and sturdy. It feels sturdy, particularly in this yarn, because this yarn is really lovely and plump. It's very round and plump and just lends itself beautifully to texture, and it looks fantastic in cables as well. So yeah, I really love it. So I'm just going to put in a normal heel flap now. Heel flap, turn. I'll probably just do a French turn. Then I'll just work down the foot and do, these days I do down a modified umbrella toe, which is longer. But I'm really enjoying it. And, you know, the stitch pattern came about. I tried a few things. And this one just, you know, it looked really pretty. And so what I'm going to do, when I was knitting this, all I could think about was knitting a pair for me in sort of the more, well, taking inspiration from the RAF colours of World War II. And when I say the RAF colours, it's a combination of things. One is the roundels that go onto the planes, you know, the round RAF symbols. If you think of a Spitfire, is the one on the Lancaster? Yes, there is. So the roundel, if you look, there's some underneath here, and then there's one on top. And I looked up the colours that were sort of most common during World War II, because they've changed over the years. They've changed hugely, those colours. I found one that was mainly on the Spitfires back then. But then I've just taken inspiration from the colours. So I'm not copying the colours exactly. I've taken the colours and then I'm sort of created my own shades from that. And what I'm going to do is knit another pair in those colours, but I'm going to put some stripes into the leg, because this stitch pattern does allow you to knit stripes really nicely. I've already swatched it and it looks really good. So I need to dye up some yarn to do that. So that'll be coming, you know, in the next few weeks. I will get that done and then I'll cast on another pair. But for now, I'm just working away on these, and it's just incredibly lovely. And, you know, really nice to be knitting down another pair of socks, but also a pair of socks that is inspiring me, because his socks can be a bit like, oh, big and long and huge. But yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting these, and the yarn's lovely. I've knit with this yarn before. My Whispers in the Walls sock design, I used this yarn for, and it just worked so beautifully with that pattern. It's so lovely. And with that pattern, there's some lace, there's some sort of twisted stitches and some texture, and it just is lovely. So yeah, I'm really enjoying these. These are Dan's pink flight socks, and you know, I'll keep you posted with the progress, but then also when I cast on that second pair, I'll show you. So Dan Jones, yes, what's on your needles?
Well, I'm using a really lovely yarn, and it's this. This is...
Oh no! Oh my gosh, this is terrible, isn't it?
I think it's very important to say, long-term viewers will know we do not take freebies from anybody. So when we talk about something, it's because we bought it and we love it.
Yeah.
So at no point has there been any sponsorship from Regia Merino Yak.
No.
We just bought some years ago.
Years ago.
Was the Whispers in the Walls the first ones?
I think so. I think that was like, I don't know when it was.
So the Whispers in the Walls
5 years ago or something
launched us into a fairly regular love of this yarn. It just works so well for so many things. And what am I knitting? Well, I'm through the second section. So look, down here there is some lovely ivy, and then up here is some more ivy.
Yeah.
And so I'm now working towards, I'm close to the end.
You are close to the end.
Because I've got this lovely section here, which I really enjoyed doing, and then it's literally just at the end. So have a look at that section. I think it's a little bit better.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's tricky. It's a tricky colourway. You know, it's not easy.
I actually think that settled down a lot already, the one lower down.
Yeah.
And I actually think that with blocking,
we're going to give it a
fine.
nice soak, you know, and we'll just see how it looks afterwards. It's going to look 100% better when it's had a nice soak.
This is, of course, the winter at Pemberley Cowl.
But doesn't it looks great, you know, from Imagine It blocked.
It's gorgeous.
Isn't it pretty?
I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous, and I've thoroughly enjoyed knitting this section again. I loved it first time. It was a real challenge, but this second time, I've loved it even more, and I have, just adjusted my technique a bit, done a lot less floating.
Yes.
Yes.
Because sometimes, right, okay, so you mean...
I've floated less.
You've floated less. You've caught them less.
I've caught them less. Yes. Floated more.
I'm going to say, I don't know how you could have floated less.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes I think if you catch it too many times, that can also cause problems.
Yeah.
depending on how good your system is. But I think that does look a bit better in those sections.
I do.
In the longer sections here.
I do too. So I think that the trick is not to catch as much.
Not to catch it as many times.
Yeah.
And just let it loosely float across the back.
Yes.
Yeah. But I had, when Dan last showed this, we did have a few questions saying, is this pattern available? It's not at the moment, because I just designed this for, was it your birthday or Christmas?
You did, but you actually, we said, because this is going to be a platinum pattern next year.
Yes, I was just going to mention that in case anybody...
You mentioned it last time.
Oh, did I?
Because there was two that we spoke about in the same episode.
Okay.
There was this, and there was something else as well. I can't remember what it is now. So there was 2 platinum patterns for next year that are already all lined up and ready to go.
But yeah, this one will be a platinum pattern, so that's the patron exclusive pattern for next year.
Yes.
Because it's a cowl, probably, I think we decided it'll be like the September one, I think.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember how
when we spoke about this is, I mean, I don't know whether it inspired me or not, but you were like ribbing me a bit, saying that it wouldn't be finished in time.
Oh yeah, well, it clearly will be.
I think that probably inspired me to put the boot down.
Yeah.
As Guy Martin said, give it the berries.
Give it the berries.
Yeah, that means go fast.
Does that?
Yeah, like, bump the engine
right, okay.
I think that's what in the 40s people would say if they were going fast.
Okay, cool.
You'll sometimes see that on Top Gear. I think James May says it.
Oh, right, it must be an era thing.
The other thing that James May says, and James May is a pilot.
Oh, he is?
He says buffeting.
Yes.
And do you recall?
Yes.
About when you reach a certain that the wings start to, and that's
wobble,
buffeting.
They
yes.
buffet.
Yeah. Buffeting.
Buffeting.
It's been an absolute joy to knit. The colours just perfect.
Brilliant. I always try and put as much information as I can with regards to yarn choices in patterns, but definitely this one is one that lends itself to this kind of a yarn, that's that sort of more
bold.
Yeah, the bold contrast, woolly, round yarn. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, cowls. Initially, when I first started knitting cowls, I think I was a bit dismissive. I think I was like, I don't really want to knit a tube.
Yeah.
It's not very interesting. But actually, when you add in the colour work, that's what changes it.
I think, and it's a great way to practice colour work as well. You don't have to worry about if you were making a jumper, you don't have to worry about any increases or anything like that. You can just practice your technique.
Yeah.
Look at the snowflake section. It looks great, doesn't it?
But you prove every autumn and winter, in fact, all the time, you always wear cowls.
I wear them all the time. I had one on recently because it's been strange weather. It's gone from boiling to then, like a few days later, quite cool. Yeah, so it's just lovely. I think you've done a brilliant job. And that ivy is, it's a tricky.
It's going to settle.
One.
It's going to be fine.
I think it will. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that is
Excellent.
The winter at Pemberley cowl.
Yes, indeed.
What else is on your needles?
Right. Well, I have another new cast on.
Oh no. And I mean, it's just hilarious.
I can't remember how many I guessed at the beginning of the year.
One tiny mistake last episode, and for like 2 seconds. What I must say to you all is, I am absolutely sort of thrilled how eagle-eyed you guys have got your eyes on the screen, baby.
Yes.
And that's cool. That's really cool, because everyone noticed on my new cast on I accidentally put Kay's name.
Yeah, it said Kay's 5th cast on or something.
When actually it was mine.
I did spot it too when I was watching it back, but it was too late to edit it at that stage.
Shall I tell you something?
So we knew everybody would realise.
Interesting fact, folks. For us to change that, what do you call it? Graphic. For us to change that graphic, it would have taken me 2 seconds to change it, but it would have taken the computer 2 hours to then produce the show again, and a further 3 hours for the show to then be available to watch on YouTube.
So it wasn't feasible.
5 hours.
It wasn't worth the time when we knew people would realise it was just a typo. And
also find it quite funny, which I think quite a few people did. They thought it was hilarious that I was now giving my cast-ons to you. Yes.
So yes, this one is another new cast-on. This is so fun, and for a lot of the reason why I'm finding this incredibly fun is that my bag exactly matches the yarn. And that is, I didn't buy them to match, but I realised when I chose the yarn for this project that I had a bag that exactly matched. And I bought this recently, actually. It's another one of the beautiful bags from Emma at Moo and Mouse. And she produced this collection of bags which are bee themed. So she's embroidered this beautiful little bee here with these like buzzy lines. Oh no, sorry, it's a lavender, isn't it? It's lavender and bee theme. And she's embroidered the bee, and it's so sweet, it's hand embroidered. And this lavendery purple colour matches my yarn almost perfectly. My yarn is a shade darker, but it's exactly the same kind of colour. So in this lovely bag, I have got the next platinum pattern for this year. So this pattern will be coming out on the 1st of September. And it's the waffle socks.
Woohoo.
I've mentioned these socks before quite a few times, that I was going to be knitting up a pair of socks designing a pair of socks called the waffle socks, because we waffle all the time.
You do?
Thank you very much.
No, I do too. So.
And so these socks are a DK weight pair of socks, and I'm having the best time knitting them. However, I wasn't initially. And then I realised something that just transformed my knitting experience of DK weight socks. Historically, I've just never really been drawn to knitting DK weight socks. I realise now what it is because I'm now loving it. I was using Magic Loop when I first started these socks, and I knit through the leg, and I think I'd done the heel. I was through the heel turn, and I was on the gusset decreases using Magic Loop. And then it dawned on me what it was that I didn't really like, what was causing me not to really enjoy it. And I love Magic Loop for fingering weight socks. I don't love Magic Loop for pretty much anything else. That's what I've realised.
That's good.
No, it's true. And the reason is, I think I've put the needle away. I was using a higher bamboo fixed circular. I'm knitting these on 3.25mm, and I think what it is because the yarn is thicker. What that means is obviously your needle is bigger, and then there's a bigger differential between the size of your needle and the cord. And what that means is that when you transfer needles over a Magic Loop, the inclination to get that tighter stitch where that stitch drops onto the cable at the back is more evident for me. It was definitely more evident, and I wasn't getting as neat a finish as I was, as I really like. And that's the moment I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to transfer to double points and see what it's like. And by chance, I had some lovely double points in my needle stash, which I've just organised. It's up there, but I got everything out, and we did this big organiser. They're all beautiful now. And I couldn't believe it. I had this pair of double points, and they're lovely. So I'm using Chowgoo bamboo double points, 3.25mm 6-inch. And they're absolutely gorgeous. I love them. So I'll show you the needles in a second. I'll show you the finished sock, because I do have one sock finished. So yeah, these are the waffle socks, and I've used a classic waffle stitch. I'll talk about this in a second because I did spend a lot of time trying all kinds of things. So here's the first sock completed. So it's got this lovely waffly texture. I've made these as short socks because I'm still obsessed with short socks. But of course, all your patrons that get this pattern, you can knit the leg however long you want it, And isn't it the most gorgeous colour? So look at my bag and look at my yarn. Look, the yarn's just a bit darker than the bag. Perfect. So yeah, it's got this lovely waffly texture. And I've done a slightly different rib on this one so that it flows into the pattern.
Oh, can I just say, Kay, can we just talk about ribs for a second?
We can.
Because I hate it. And I've only learnt this because of you. You see, take a sock pattern, for example.
Yeah.
You get this sock pattern, and there's a rib.
Yeah.
And then you go into some sort of design or texture, and it looks like someone's just plugged in a rib and plugged in a texture, and there's been zero thought about getting
one flowing into the other. Yeah, I mean, I do see that sometimes, and sometimes it can be really tricky. You know, depending on the pattern, it can be really tricky. And you know, in the past, I've mentioned that I've designed really particular ribs just because I couldn't bear the thought of the rib not flowing into the pattern. And I think the only reason, you know, everybody's different, and it probably wouldn't bother a lot of people. You know, if you were knitting a sock, you know, it might not bother you, and that's fine, obviously. But I think if it doesn't flow, for me, it's a bit jarring. You know, you just have this rib and then it's like bump and then it goes into a pattern. I just like mine to be really cohesive.
That you've summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
It's the flowing.
Yeah, so for this one you can see it just flows straight in. So I've never done this rib before. I did a Knit 1 Purl 2 rib. And it's lovely. I think it's certainly stretchy enough. It looks really nice. And look how lovely this yarn is. I've used this yarn before for socks. So I'm using its Skepias, but everybody calls it sheepies, and I tend to call it that too.
You pronounce that, Skepias?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Wow.
Or Skipias or something like that. I'm probably pronouncing it totally wrong.
Goodness.
But it's the Merino Soft. It comes in 50 gram balls, and the colour I'm using is number 639, and it's this gorgeous lavender. But can you see it's purple, but as I've been knitting with it, I can see pink in there too, which is my favourite type of purple. And yeah, it comes in 50 gram balls, so this is what I had left of the first 50 gram. And then I've started in on the second one. I've wound this one into a ball. I didn't the first one, but it just started flopping all over the place. So I've wound this one into a ball. And this yarn is lovely. It's really inexpensive, and the makeup of it really is perfect for socks. It's 50% superwash merino, 25% microfiber, and 25% acrylic. So it's super hard wearing, washable at 30 degrees in the washer. And, you know, it's really nice. You get 105 metres to 50 grams. So it's a lovely DK weight. It's nice and round and plump. It's one of those yarns that has a lot of strands within it. I mean, there might be 8. I'd have to sort of unfurl it. It's sort of very multi-stranded. So because of that, it's bouncy and it's round. It's a little bit slippery, I will say that, and I think that's because of the microfiber. I think microfiber does tend to be a bit slippy. So it is a little bit slippery, but because I'm using wooden needles, I'm not finding that to be a bother. So I started the second sock here, and the needles, as I said, are the Chow bamboo, 3.25mm, and they're just lovely. I absolutely love wooden needles, especially I love wooden double points. There's just something about wooden needles for me.
What is tactile?
Very tactile. These are lovely and smooth, and you know, bamboo can sometimes, like, it can split, can't it, and shards can come off it. But these are, so far, you know, I've knit almost a full sock, and I'm on the second sock with these, and they're just lovely. They're lovely and smooth. And as you work with wood as well, it polishes and it just gets more lovely and smooth to work with. So I've not had any issues at all with these needles. Just absolutely lovely. And it's just made the knitting of DK weight socks for me an absolute delight.
Wow.
I'm just really loving it. You know, there's just something about the combination, especially this size of a double point as well. You know, it's not too big, because I do like, you know, I think 3.25 for me is perfect for DK weight, but I know some people, if you're a particularly tight knitter, you might want to go up a needle size. But, you know, you just check the gauge on the pattern, don't you? And you can go up a needle size if you know that you're a tight knitter. But yeah, it's just lovely. And also what I noticed is the rib on my second sock is much neater than on my first sock when I use Magic Loop. Isn't that funny? You know, this one is super, I mean, look how super neat that rib is.
It's amazing.
But it's just really, really neat. Whereas my first one, it's neat, but there's a couple of sort of looser stitches where the join is, you know, where my Magic Loop has switched sides. There's a couple of little loose stitches at the beginning, which I don't like. So yeah, DK weight, pair of socks. There's just one size in this pattern. There's just a size medium because of the count, the stitch what am I trying to say? Because it's a 3-stitch repeat. And as much as I tried to convert that to 4 stitches, and I could quite easily convert it to a 4-stitch repeat so I could fit more sizes in, the pattern just didn't look the same. It didn't look as waffly. No matter what I tried all kinds of different combinations. So I decided in the end, do you know what? I'm just going to do a size medium, which I think is the one that most commonly is knitted anyway, especially with DK weight.
You could have just your needle size, couldn't you?
You could adjust your needle size, yeah, you know, and yeah. So that's what I decided to do.
You can knit them as long as you like.
No, but that doesn't make a difference to the size of it.
I realise that.
So yeah, these lovely, squishy, you know, I'll be wearing these with pyjamas at night time. It's such a lovely, feel the squish.
Yeah.
Really lovely, soft, super, super soft. Perfect yarn for like pyjama socks, I would say. And I have used this yarn before. I used it when I did the Choose Your House socks, which was part of the Swish and Flick collective, the Harry Potter huge sort of album of patterns that I did. And I've still got those socks. I still wear them, and Bryony still wears them. So yeah, brilliant. And all of the colourways are named after artists, I seem to think. I can't remember what the artist is for this purple. But I know that they do a blue colour that's called Chagall. And that's really funny because my ancient car, is Chagall blue. So that always makes me... Anyway, that was random, wasn't it? So yeah, lovely squishy socks. Yeah, I'm waffling about my waffle socks. Yes.
It's, look, it's Let Lope. It's just what you want all over you on a slightly warm-ish day on my knees, making me feel even warmer. This is... gorgeous Let Lope yarn, and the colours are just perfect.
They're
and
lovely.
You only see the sort of real perfection when you see it in its full glory. Now this is nearly my complete body of work. Oh. I have a few rounds to go and the body will be done, so that's always exciting because as soon as you get onto the sleeves, that's when things really do start to motor. There's something very sort of rewarding, I think, in your head when you see a great big pile of knitting like that.
Great big pile of knitting.
Yeah. I don't know, it's like, you know, knitting something for your body. It just is like the ultimate thing to take care of yourself, I suppose, because it's going to keep you warm.
Yeah, I guess so. Isn't this colour fantastic?
Do you know what? It was a really interesting process for me because I was always a knit for other people person.
Me too.
And then it was when I knitted my first jumper for myself, because initially I just knitted jumpers for Kay. Or jumper dresses or whatever it was, because the Irish coffee.
And then that's a lovely
thing. The Solia with the 2 long sleeves, and my mum, the Samantha Cascades, which is really good. And it was only when I knitted the very first one for me, but even when I'd knitted it, you know, I put it on and it's great, and everything's great, but then I went out to do some filming.
Thank you.
I thought you were looking.
I was looking for the pattern.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know whether you'd mentioned what it was.
It's the Godi.
Godi.
Yes.
Godi.
Correct. And I could never pronounce the lady's name. It's the loveliest name ever.
Yes, it's the Icelandic lady, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I go out to do some filming for the Baker Bears Advent Calendar. I was in a churchyard doing some filming for the Baker Bears Advent Calendar, and I'm walking around in this jumper, and I'm like, just warm enough, but it's letting the air in. And it was like, yes, I now understand why people knit for themselves. And it was just the loveliest feeling. And so now, when I knit the...
Is this the fourth one you're knitting for yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so greedy.
We're running out of colours that we can choose for Dan now.
I had always said...
Oh, no, we do have new yarn on the way.
We do.
It's very exciting.
We shall find out all about that next time.
Hopefully, we'll have it next time.
Yes. Crumbs, what was the first one? It was the Ridari.
The man with the rope.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had the Ridari on, and I'm walking around this churchyard, and I'm like, I have fallen in love with knitting jumpers for myself. Yeah. And so that's why now 4 in, and I don't see me getting bored with knitting Let Lopey jumpers.
No.
They're very sort of addictive, and the way the yarn knits up and just the way it works. And the most interesting thing of all is, and this is something which you would only get once I think you would have to wear it in a cold environment to fully appreciate how great Let Lopey is.
Yeah.
Because the minute you do that, you're like, I get it now. I think if you wear it in a slightly too warm environment, you'd think, no, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, I was just looking because I think I know what shade that red is.
Right.
Because I've got 2 ball bands with the same shade number, and the other 3 are different.
Yes.
So that must be the 3 other colours.
Yes.
So the 3 other colours, we've got Galaxy. I know that black is Galaxy.
Because I've used that before.
I'm not sure which of these numbers is Galaxy. And then we've got this green and the beige. So those 3 are 1419, 1417 and 1707.
Cool.
But I've got 2 ball bands in here with the same shade number on. So these must be the red colour. Yes. 9431 is this gorgeous rusty sort of red.
Yes.
Beautiful. It's going to look so good on you, that colour, I think. Yeah.
So, body, sleeves, and then you get to the good stuff.
Yes.
My favourite point, definitely my favourite point, and I think it's because it's complex, but I understand it now and I can just do it, is I love attaching sleeves to bodies. In fact, I do that for a job for people.
You would?
Yes. They could bring me their sleeves. And
what would that job title be called?
Hey,
what would it be?
Hey, we thought of a great...
Sleeve attacher.
Yes, sleeve attacher. Yes.
Yeah.
What's your job? I'm a sleeve attacher.
Yeah.
No, I'm a playlist maker.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We came up with a new job for Dan, and we think there's business potential with this job.
We are kidding.
No, yeah, we are kidding. But no, Dan's brilliant at making playlists, right? You've done it all of your life, haven't you?
Folks, do not listen to stupid Apple put together its own stupid list.
They're usually rubbish. They're usually rubbish.
It's utter tripe.
But Dan has done... I've got tons of playlists on my phone. You know, I'll say to him randomly, I'd love a classical music playlist. Yeah. Like the next day, there you go, and they're all brilliant. You know, and he's done that with loads of things. I've got a 50th... He did me one for my 50th birthday, which is 50 songs that reflect me, you know, and all of my years. And it was just so touching. He also created like a book, a hard copy book with loads of photos of me and us and our life, and it had all different quotes on it related to the songs, and it's like, this is why I chose this song. And you'd put it on I remember I came downstairs on my 50th birthday, and it was early morning, and he'd left left my phone there, and he'd put the playlist on it with my earbuds, and the book was there, and I sat there for like half an hour just flicking through it and listening to it, and I was like sobbing because he'd done this for me. It's so lovely. And I listen to that playlist all the time, and I've got about 4 others on there as well that you've randomly done me. When I've been like particularly anxious, I asked him to do me some playlists to sort of distract my brain, and he did me like 3 playlists. And you're absolutely brilliant at it, you know, because he's got such a vast knowledge of music. And, you know, because Dan is a musician, you know, that is who he is. And you can sometimes forget, I think, you know, when your life changes and you move into different things, you can sometimes sort of lose track with your origins, if you like. But Dan plays his drums every night, and you know, he's a musician, and when I think of Dan, I think of him as a musician. And it's just brilliant when you do little things like the playlist and working with your brother and all of that.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's, you know, it's really fun, and I can see his face just light up, you know, whenever it's anything to do with music, because you're just so passionate about it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that frustrates me about the whole computer-generated playlist thing is some boffin has gone, I know what we do. We look at the things that people normally listen to, and then we pick songs like that, and we can get that to pre-populate and stick it into a list, and it's great. That's not how it works, people. In the old days, when people were putting together albums, and loads of you out there will know this, I know you will, when albums were put together, it was put together with a real sort of human touch. Yes, there was an element of science in there as well, because you can't have a song with a high beats per minute and then immediately jump to a song with a slow beats per minute, because it's too much, it's too jarring.
Yeah.
It's a bit like sticking a rib in a sock and then not having it flow into the one below. It has to flow. If it flows, then you listen to a playlist and at no point do you think, I don't know that song, because the playlist itself is taking you on a journey, so you feel at home the whole way through it. And so whilst I love making playlists, it's also really sort of taxing in one sense.
It is, yeah, I can imagine it is.
Because you know that it has to be perfect. A bit like when you do a sock design. And it's like, I can't, accept if that's not right, then until that bit's right, that list is not going out. And so when I did that 50th, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
But I loved every second of it.
And it drives Dan mad when I press shuffle on it. So if I press shuffle on a playlist that he's done, he's like...
It's like sacrilege.
He can't even do that because he's designed it for one to go into the next.
I chose that song to go there.
And I'll go shuffle just to wind him up. It's really funny.
My ears are bleeding. What else is on your needles?
So the final thing I've got to show you is my Yuletide scarf, my Advent scarf. So I haven't shown you this for a little bit, but I have been steadily working on it. Just grab that yarn I'm working on now. So this scarf is a design that I will be putting out in probably early November. I've called it the Yuletide Scarf. Oh, I've got a join in my yarn. Oh, do you know, I know that it happens, but these were 20 gram minis as well. That's really annoying. Do you know when you get that join and it's... You can't knit over it. I've done that before and it looks terrible. It's lumpy and horrible, and I think wouldn't necessarily be as strong as another bit, so I always have to cut them out. So I'm going to have to cut that out, so I'm going to lose a little bit of yarn, which is annoying. Anyway, so this is the Yuletide scarf, and I knit one of these through last December using an advent calendar that I got from Beaches and Birdsong that was the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe themed, and I loved it. It was fantastic. I've ordered another one from her this year, which is Peter Pan themed. But I also had another advent calendar that I purchased from Beehive Yarns, and it was patisserie themed. I showed you, I spoke about it. The last time I showed you this scarf, I spoke about the advent calendar in particular, but it was all these kind of, that's my little bits of leftover yarn, all these sort of sugary, lovely shades, really pretty. So what I did was I've reordered it. I put it into my own order because I just like doing that. I'm a bit of a colour person, and with this particular one, because the shades were sort of in groups of colours, to me it just lended itself to be arranged slightly differently. I don't know how different it is actually to the order that I opened them, because it's difficult to identify. I do have a list of the colours, but it's difficult to identify which colour is which. That was a bit of a ramble about the yarn. But I'm on now colour 11 out of 24. Oh, it's really lovely. I'm really loving how these colours are working out. So I started down here with just a cream, just a fairly plain cream. And then I've moved it through these sort of peachy shades down here. And then it's gone into browns and sort of golds, and then into like a rosy sort of red. And I'm now into more sort of vivid pink. But this is the one I'm working on now. It's quite a nice, bright rose. It's not even rose pink. I would... ballerina-y sort of pink. And yeah, so it's like a stripe, it's this striped scarf, it's knit in the round, so it's a tube, and then it's separated off by these little narrow bands of a contrast colour. And I chose, for the contrast colour, I chose a deep purple. It's so beautiful, this colour. And it's Malabrigo. I think it's just Malabrigo sock. I don't think it's ultimate sock. It's just sock. Just Malabrigo sock. So it's 100% merino. And this colour is Violetta Africana, African violet. And it's the most beautiful purple. Look at that. Just gorgeous. And I thought this purple went really well with all of the colours within the advent calendar. So I'm just working my way through this. I did, when I knit one of these, look how lovely it looks.
It's gorgeous.
When I knit one of these in December, I just knit one every day. So it's quite an eclectic look to the mix of colours. And I love that just as much. But this one is more of an ordered sort of colour choice. I didn't want it to sort of go from pinks randomly like into a green and then maybe randomly into a purple. Do you know what I mean? I wanted it to be a bit more of a flow.
Do you now see why I don't like shuffled playlists?
Well, sort of. Well, yeah, I get it.
It's the same thing.
It's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
I think it was in... I'm trying to remember how I opened it, what it looked like. I think it was like in little groups of colour.
Yeah.
I can't fully remember. But it's been lovely.
You have to put them, don't you, in the order that...
Yeah, I think with this one, because I had all of the yarns in front of me.
I mean, you are genius.
It's just too much of I just couldn't resist putting them into, playing around and putting them into an order.
You love anything where you get to play with colour.
Yeah, I do. And it ends on... Where's number 24? I've put little tags in, so it ends with this gorgeous green at the other end. So that's 23, which is incredibly similar, actually. It's just got a few specks in it. So that's going to be the other end, these really sort of pistachio greens. And I think that's just going to look so nice. So it's going from cream into peach, into golds and browns, into pink, and then it goes into purple, into blue, into green. And that just felt like a really nice flow. So yeah, I've already recorded a couple of tutorials that will go along with this. And I've just got, I think, either one or two more to record when I've completed this. And this pattern then will be out round about the beginning of November so that it's ready for people if they want to use it to knit through an advent calendar that they might get in December. And it was a really perfect project, really simple, very achievable. I knit through one of these sections every day because it's yarn held double. I don't think I said that. It's yarn held double, so you're only actually knitting 10 grams a day. That's really achievable.
Folks, it's time to get back in those dye pots. Yes. And in her penultimate episode of the season, Kay is getting all seasonal. It's not the season that you would expect. Oh no, it may be summer, but who's ready for some Christmas in July? This is the Yarny Book Club.
I love reading books and adore dyeing yarn, so I thought in this series it would be wonderful to combine them. So, over the next 6 episodes, join me as I share with you some of my favourite books and we create colourways inspired by them. Along the way, I hope you find some inspiration for some great reads, and we also discover some fantastic new colourways. Welcome to the Yarny Book Club.
Well, hello everybody. I am thrilled to be back in the kitchen with you today, dyeing up some yarn for our next Yarny Book Club adventures. How exciting. So we are, of course, still in July. I know we're at the very end of July now, but we are still in July, and I couldn't resist taking advantage of that fact and dyeing up a Christmas colourway this time. Yep, we're doing a bit of Christmas in July dyeing. So that's going to be super fun. I mean, I could have gone in all kinds of directions with the yarn, you know, for this one, but I've actually been listening to some Christmas things, I've been knitting some Christmas things, so I just thought, why not? It's going to be fun, because this series doesn't run through to actual Christmas, so I think this is just a great time to, you know, dye up some festive yarns. Now I say yarns because this time what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be actually dyeing up 2 different colourways. So the book that I've chosen, I've got here. Now I have got a hard copy book to show you, but I actually listened to this, as I do, to be honest, most of my reading. I never know what to call it. Am I still reading when I'm listening to it? I suppose I am, aren't I? So this book I listened to last year, the back end of last year, and I'm actually just listening to it again. And I'm enjoying it just as much the second time round. And that's the great thing, I think, with listening to books. I don't quite get as, not tired's the wrong word, but I don't very often reread books. But I do quite often re-listen to books, and I'm not quite sure why that is, really. But in any case, it's a great story, so I'm going to tell you what the book is. Now, I've gone down the kind of Hallmark route with this. It's a light, fun, very festive read that you will just whiz through and, you know, just be indulged with the kind of Hallmark-esque type of read it is. So the book is called The Christmas Holiday, and it's by Philippa Ashley. I've read a lot of Philippa Ashley books, and she's brilliant for that kind of light escapism read, holiday read, you know, if you sat on the beach, brilliant thing to read. I'll tell you all about this book when we sit down and have a chat about it, but basically this sort of general synopsis is the main character is called Crystal, and I didn't realise it's spelt with a K because I listened to it, so, you know, that didn't... I think it's always nice, isn't it, to see things written down, because sometimes the words can look different than you imagine in your head, and names in particular. So Crystal is the main character, and it's about a time that she spends in the Lake District. So it's set in the Lake District, which is lovely. It's a brilliant setting for Christmas, I think, in this big, beautiful old house that she actually rents for quite a long period of time. The plan is that she's going to go up there with her boyfriend. She's going to spend about 3 months up there. Her boyfriend, as is most, you know, common in these cases, is a bit of a waste of space, and he doesn't really last very long. He's not the love interest. A love interest does come into it. Yeah, she meets this man called Max, who comes to her rescue in a situation when she just arrives. And the story goes from there, really. So it's just a really good festive read. Really, really enjoyed it. I can't remember how many hours long it is to listen to, but I think it might be somewhere around the 10, 11 hours-ish, 8, 9, 10, 11, something like that. So it's a nice quick listen as well. You could get through it in a week, no problem, you know, if you were listening to it an hour a day. Now, the colourways that I'm going to do, the reason I'm doing 2 is because in the book, she wants to decorate this house that she's staying in, and she chooses a couple of different themes because part of her job is deciding what themes are going to be sort of popular each year. And that just made me think of dyeing up 2, you know, contrasting colours. I'm going to go one which is very sort of rich vintage colours. We're going plums and purples and some gold. But then on the opposite end of the scale, I'm going to dye a skein which is very contemporary. It uses light blues and pinks and some neon speckles. So super fun. We've got everything going on today. So that's our book. That's the colourways we're going to be dyeing up today. So let's now take a look at the supplies that we're going to use every time we dye up some yarn. So first of all, over here I've got my pans that I dye in, my pots. I always dye in pots. I don't dye in those flat sort of tray things. I always dye in the pots, and these are stainless steel pots, and it's sort of like a casserole pot. I like the ones that have got 2 handles because they're nice and easy to lift around. All of your equipment that you use for dyeing your yarn, you should only use for dyeing yarn. So pack it in a box, keep it somewhere separate, and that's your dyeing equipment. So yeah, we've got our 2 pots. We've got our mordant, which for me is citric acid because it's a dried product. It's actually a food product. It's what makes sweets that sort of fizzy, sour fizziness. So it's really easy to store. It's really nice and cheap to buy. I think this big tub was like £10 or something from Amazon. I've got a little plastic measuring cup because sometimes we will need that. And then here I've got some paintbrushes and I've got my measuring spoon. So the paintbrushes are for speckling, and the measuring spoon is when we are either measuring dye directly into the water, or sometimes I also sprinkle the dye on with this. And this is a 1/8 of a teaspoon measure. We've got my mask, of course. Always wear a mask when we are dyeing yarn. I've got a little bowl here. This is a little Pyrex ramekin dish that I stole from the ones in my cupboard, and I use this for when I'm mixing my own dye colours. So when I'm combining colours, I use that to mix the dye powders. I've got my design book with all my notes in, of course. My big mixing spoon. I couldn't do my dyeing without my big mixing spoon. I've got some old tea towels. I've got a piece of oilcloth here. And these are just to protect the work surface because I'm dyeing in the kitchen. And then I've got 2 pairs of gloves. I've got a heavy duty pair for when the water's hot, and then I've just got one of these sort of surgical pairs, I suppose they are, because I don't like wearing thick heavy gloves most of the time, so these are really great. So we can now have a look at the dyes and the yarn that we're going to be using. Right, so in my bowl I've got my 2 skeins of yarn that I'm going to be using. It's the same base that I'm using the whole way through this series, just to keep it nice and consistent when we're knitting it in. So this base is an 85-15, so it's 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, and you get 400 meters per 100 grams. So I've got 2 of those, and it's having a nice soak in some warm water just from the tap, and a scoop of citric acid. Now I've got 2 groups of dyes for our 2 different colourways. We've got 5, as you can see, with one of the colours and 4 with the other. So quite a lot of dyes we're going to use today. So I will, as always, I'll tell you what the dye colour is and then I'll just describe it so that if you want to substitute it in with a different colour, you can do that. For our vintage sort of rich colour, what we're going to be using is just 4 shades, and I've got 2 from landscape dyes and 2 from jacquard. So the landscape dyes, first of all, we've got plum, and this is exactly how it sounds. It's that kind of reddish purplish colour of the, you know, the skin of a plum. And then we've also got, from landscape again, we've got a sarsaparilla. I can't stand sarsaparilla. I did once try it. I can't remember how we tried it. Did someone send us some? I can't even remember. Ugh, did not like it. But anyway, love the colour. Sarsaparilla is like a really gorgeous, rich purple. Probably getting towards like a royal purple. We've then got 2 jacquard colours. First of all, I've got brilliant blue, which is number 623. And this one is, again, how it sounds. It's that kind of bright but deep blue. Mid-tone, I would say, you know, it's not like a navy's at the other end of the scale for me and then like a light blue is up here. This one probably sits in the middle, nice bright mid-tone blue. And then, of course, my beloved gold ochre. Will I ever stop using gold ochre? Probably not. But it's number 636. I don't need to say anything about this colour, do I? So that's the 4 shades for our more vintage colour of Christmas yarn. And then on the other scale, we've got 5 colours, and these are all actually jacquard, and mainly jacquard this time. So what we've got here is, we've got pink, which is 608. That is just a pure kind of ballerina pink, if you like. In fact, there's a colour of Dharma dyes, I think it is, called ballerina pink, and that is very, very similar. And then we've got sky blue, 621. Sky blue is like as it sounds, you know, it is pretty much the colour of the sky today. It does lean a little bit more slightly greyish, I think, especially when you use it in the way that I'm going to use it today. But you just want that really nice light pale blue colour. And then we've got colours that we're going to speckle with. Now I've got 2 new ones this time that I've not used before. Well, I have, because I've trialled them, if you know what I mean, but they were new to me. And they're fluorescent dyes from Jacquard. So I've got 642, which is fluorescent red. Now I thought, when I saw this, I thought, can you have a fluorescent red? But it's really just a super bright and light red. You know, it's not one of those reds that's really deep. You know, try and imagine, you know, with all these fluorescent colours, that kind of neon sign, and if it was red, it's that sort of colour. And then we've got fluorescent yellow, which is 640, which is really just like a neon yellow. You know, it doesn't lean green at all, it's very yellow, because some neon yellows can lean a bit green, can't they? This one is very yellow. And then the final colour is Brilliant Kelly Green, which is 627. I've spoken to you about using green before. I'm a bit funny with greens, but this one surprised me, and it's absolutely brilliant for what I'm going to use it for today. It is, as it's described, a Kelly green, but it's very light and bright. It sort of edges towards the more yellowy greens than the bluish greens, and I think that's why it kind of looks a bit neon when you speckle it. It's really fun. So there we go, that's all of our dyes. We've got our yarn soaking, so it's time to get dyeing some yarn. Right, so we are starting off with our contemporary colourway, so our neon speckled colourway. So in my pot here, I've got it full, about sort of 1/3 to 1/2 full with water, and I've got another scoop of citric acid in there, about a tablespoon. So I'm going to put my yarn into the pot first of all. So let's just grab it, squidge. And then I always give it a little shake just to release those fibres so they don't clump together. And then in the pot, and just move it around so that we get as much yarn on the top of the water. So what I'm going to do now is make up a little liquid solution. So we're starting with the pink. What I'm going to do is just, can you see I've just got like the tip of the spoon, just a little bit of pink, and drop that in. I might need a bit more, I'm just remembering from the last time I did it, but just the tip of the spoon. And then I'm going to fill this with some warm water just from the tap to about 150 mils. There we go. So you can see it's just a very gentle pink. We don't want a lot of colour at all. Give it a stir to make sure that we've got, you know, a fully liquid solution, that we're not got any little speckles of dye. And now, I mean, it's hot. We're just going to pour it over and sort of give it a nice press in at the same time, because I want this to be very gentle and blendy. I don't really want lines of colour. So just pour over the surface like this. I sort of miss some areas and pour it into others, and just give it a push. So you can see there's not a lot of dye on there at all, but it's perfect for what we want. Now I'm going to do that again. So just tiny bit of pink, about 150 mils again of warm water, and you can see there it looks about the same shade as it did before. Right, so here we go. You can see we've not got very much at all on here, but we've got bits of it running through, but then hardly anything on the other side. So what we need to do is turn that around, and when you drop it back in, this top bit especially I tend to flip over. So again, just move it around until we've got lots of surface area with lots that's still white. And same thing again, I'm just going to pour it in and then give it a little push. We don't have to be too accurate about this, you know, just pour it in, go for it. So now we're going to go to the sky blue. So again, just a tiny bit. So I've just got a tiny bit of the sky blue. Same thing again, up to 150 mils of warm water. So you can see it's a very pale, pretty blue. So let's just have a look at our skein. So you can see now we've got a nice amount of pink on pretty much all areas. So I'm going to move it again and do the same thing. Now when we put the blue on, inevitably we'll go on to, you can see here we've got some areas that are pink and some that haven't got any dye on. So we're going to get a mix, and that's what we want. You know, we want this to be very blendy, very gentle. Now just pour it in. You can see when it hits the yarn, for me it does have a sort of greyish tinge to it. So I'm going to make up another batch of that blue, and I'll just make it a teeny bit stronger this time. So I'll just add the water in again to this one. But you can see now, look, we've got blues and pinks going on, and where they meet, can you see you get this lovely kind of lavender colour here? It's really pretty. So let's get this one in. Yeah, that's definitely a bit darker. And now what I'm going to do straight away, because there'll be a tiny bit of residual blue in there, I'm just going to move the skein around and give it a dunk in that. So just moving it around will just soak up that last bit of dye, because there's so little in there, it takes moments. Oh, it's very pretty. Right, so I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes just to make sure that all of that last dye we put in there has been absorbed. Okay, so we're going to scoop out some water now, because when we speckle we just need hardly any water in there. So all I'm going to do is use my scoop, just scoop it out. There's no dye in there now, so we're safe to get rid of that. Just scoop it out until we've just got barely any water in there. And what we want is, we don't want huge puddles. That looks perfect. So we're now going to speckle on top of this almost Monet-like load of yarn. So we're going to start with the red. We're going to speckle all three colours on this top layer now. We're not going to move it at all until we've got three colours on there. Then we're going to move it and we're going to re-speckle. So just dip in your brush and then tap it off so you've not got tons on there. And then we're going to go close to the surface and just speckle a little bit like that, and then move somewhere else. You know, if you get bigger speckles, like over when I first started there, it's slightly bigger, that's fine. So just go over the skein and just find little areas to put speckles, and then just sometimes, just to get really teeny ones, just one little tap like that will get you sort of super teeny little speckles. That looks about right. And let's get some green, so the Brilliant Kelly green. So same thing, get some on your brush and then tap. Now go for sort of areas we haven't gone on. So when you speckle it, when you put it on, it does look very yellow, but then as the water gets to it, you'll see the green emerges. And especially if it catches like a little pool of water. And just sort of have a little assess of where you might not have any green. We just want to make sure we've got a good distribution of each of the colours. Can you see here the brightness of the green that's coming through there? It's really cool. So now we're going to go for that fluorescent yellow. Now with this, what I did last time, and I really liked it, I speckled it by itself in little areas, because I think that for me the yellow is more of a sort of accent. So just little areas by itself. But then
I put some on top of the green in certain areas, and then also on top of the red, and you then get another colour coming through. So when you put it on the green, so let's put it here for example, it's not obvious right now, but that really sort of whoops the green up. And when you go for a red area, let's go over here. Again, you won't necessarily see it now, but that's going to give us some more orangey tones, really sort of bright neon-y orange, which I think is really nice. So it just adds another level of colour really. So what we need to do now is just leave that to set, give it sort of 5-10 minutes. It is bubbling away quite nicely now. So what I will do is I like to just put on a lid. So I'm just going to put a piece of foil on top there, give it 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most to set, and then we'll come back and repeat. Right, so that's now set, and to check it, just get your big spoon, and I went over here, this was the first bit that I speckled and checked it there, and then I checked some of the yellow, which was the last bit, and it's all good. So let's just give that a bit of a move. I'm going to turn it and then just check, you know, which side you think is least speckled. So now it's ready now to just be popped outside to cool. So what I will do, it's nice and bubbly there, you know, there's some good heat. So I'm just going to cover this over again and just leave it on the heat for a few minutes. And what that will do is that will then produce steam, and then we're going to keep that steam inside. That's going to set the top surface, and we can pop it outside to cool down. Right, so we are on to our second Christmas colourway, and this one is more rich and more bold colours. So first of all, I'm going to put the yarn in the pot. So squidge it. Now this technique I'm going to use is probably my favourite, I think, and that's mainly because you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to have a gentle touch, you don't have to be too accurate in how much you put on, and it's quick and kind of fun. So our yarn's gone in. The water was hot actually when I put that in. So I've lined up my dies in the order that I'm going to be putting them on there. So I'm going to start with the sarsaparilla, and I'm going to be using my measuring spoon for this, so it's 1/8 of a teaspoon. So I'm just going to take a full 1/8 and I'm just going to tap it on, and then we're going to push it straight away. Some's dropped on, totally fine, not a problem. So just go in and really generously sprinkle that over the surface, and then we're just going to push it a little bit, but only in the sort of areas that we sprinkled, like that. And what that will do is it will maintain that kind of intense colour through certain bits, but then the purple's just going to seep out into the other areas. Just give that a minute or two. We're not too fussy in terms of waiting for like full saturation in there, because we don't mind if these colours mingle and just, you know, do their own thing. That's part of the joy, I think, of this method. So I'm now going to go with the plum, and this one is more reddish. So again, a nice heaped 1/8, and just go over, and you know, some areas will catch the colour we've already put on and some areas won't. And then just give that a nice tap as well, just push it in. We don't mind if we get some speckles, but that's not the aim of this one, it's more of a variegated. So I'm going to just leave that for a few minutes. Again, we don't mind if there's a bit of colour left in the water, but just to let it have an initial couple of minutes set. And then we're going to move the skein and we're going to repeat that with those two colours. Okay, so that's just had a couple of minutes, so I'm now going to lift it, and there's going to be some, there's probably, I would say, most likely going to be some dye in there, that's fine. So we're now going to give it a move, but can you see what those two colours do together? Aren't they just lovely? So now we're just going to do that again with the sarsaparilla, I should say, on top, on first. And then the plum on top of that. Okay, so that's another layer of the sarsaparilla and the plum. So before I add, I've got one more sort of deep dark colour to add, but I'm just going to let that set. Okay, so that's had a good 5 minutes now, and I'm going to move it around and we're going to put in that blue. So we're going to go in with the brilliant blue, and this time I'm only going to use about half of a spoon. So once again, I'm just going to let that stand for about 5 minutes. Okay, so lift. You can see that the colour's pretty much all gone now. Might now be a little sort of hint of blue, but actually adding that blue, I think it really works with the other two colours, with the, because we've got purple in there. It really does work, those three colours together. There we go, so just one more amount of blue, again just a half again, just sprinkled over, and then a little push down. So again, just leave that be for 5 minutes or so, and then, oh my goodness, it's my favourite bit. Right, so we're ready now to add in the gold ochre. So all I did was I just lifted it up and moved it around a bit, and that just made sure that we fully absorbed all the remaining blue that was in there. So this is the fun bit for me. So we're just going to use about 1/2 again of gold ochre. Same thing exactly, just all over the surface. And what happens is, where we hit the blue in particular, we get a colour change. Can you see what happens? It's like some magical alchemy thing happens. Can you see now green's coming through here? And obviously, where it's hitting the red, it's turning it more of a sort of goldeny colour. So you could, it does look sort of autumnalish, this as well, but to me, it reads more of just deep, rich colours. But the gold really just sort of, I just think this takes it to that sort of next level, if you like. So we've added that in, and I'm going to move it straight away because I don't mind if bits of the gold go in other places. So if I lift it up, can you see here, for example, I don't know if it's coming up on camera, but we've got some greens coming through into sort of like a bronzy kind of colour, and then yet we've still got all of these purples and reds. It's so pretty, and we've got some more down there. So you can see there's a bit of gold dye still in there. That's totally fine. We're just going to give it a little move, and then just this process of moving it around like this will absorb the rest of that gold that's down there. So another half of the gold. Just sprinkle that over, push, So there we go. That's our second beautiful vintage Christmas colour, all dyed. So I'm going to pop this outside to dry. Not to dry. So I'm going to pop this outside to cool down with the other one. So there we go then. Our yarns are dyed up. They're cooling outside. I say cooling. Don't know how much they're going to cool today, but in theory they are cooling outside. So come back in part 2 and we're going to get that yarn in, we're going to give it a wash, we're going to get it dried, and then of course I get to choose which one I'm going to use to knit into our lovely reading cowl.
What a start. This is the show that keeps on giving. 2 colourways for 1.
My goodness.
A 2-for-1 offer. I said to you after I was editing it, I think you were slightly over generous with your time. You've done 2 episodes in one. But my goodness, what fun.
Too much content.
There can never be too much content.
Yes.
I mean, just stupendous. Love the sort of one with the pops of colour, but then love the sumptuous one that makes me think of lovely sort of puddings and things.
Yes.
And you've not even dried them yet.
No.
I mean, just spectacular.
I know.
In part 2, you'll be given the book review, of course.
I will.
Ooh.
I will.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And much has happened since dyeing that, actually, in terms of me personally being inspired by one of the yarns to design something.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's exciting.
You know what it is.
I do.
Yeah.
So more of that later on in the show. Because, yes, we have something spectacular to show you.
Oh, yes.
And it is in What's Off Our Needles. And I suppose it is off our needles, because it's off our daughter's needle.
Yes.
Is this? So I shall ask, I can't say it. Kay Jones? Bryony Jones? What's off your needle?
Yes.
Let's take a look.
So, yes, first of all, we've got something that Bryony has finished. So she's completed her Star Trek... Is it Generations?
Yeah.
No, Next Generation. Cross-stitch piece. And I got a frame for her and I spent some time and framed it. And it just looks fantastic. So she chose the frame. She chose the colours for the frame. And it just looks great. So here... now the reflection's going to be a problem. Hang on, there we go.
I've got it.
There you go. So this is Bryony's cross stitch that she's completed. So she's stitched all of these little fellas. We've got Picard, Riker, Data, Mr. Worf. Oh, what's he called? Oh, Geordie McFordy, the Doctor.
Geordie LaForge.
Sorry, that's what we call him.
Geordie LaForge.
Geordie LaForge.
Dr. Crusher.
Dr. Crusher and
Councillor
Troy. So she stitched all of those, and then I got this lovely frame. I buy my picture frames, I have done for quite a while, from a UK company, and it's on the back actually. Yeah, it's frames.co.uk, and you can custom make your own frame to fit any piece of either artwork or, in this case, embroidery. So that's what I did. Bryony wanted this blue and black, which I think looks great, and then I used adhesive like mount board. It's the stuff that's specifically for embroidery, so it's acid-free adhesive mount board, and I used that to mount the piece and then framed it.
Beautiful.
And I think it looks beautiful. So this will be going with her to university.
Yes, yes.
And going up on her wall using, obviously, the removable things that you have to use
using
for...
nails and a blowtorch.
Not allowed to do that. So yeah, super proud of her, and she's thrilled. And she's done another one since then, a small one, which I'm in the process of framing, so I'll show you that next time. And she's now started her third. So that's brilliant. Dan Jones?
Yes.
What's off your needles?
Yes, I have something. It's exciting. It's the angel hat. And I made mistakes everywhere, but it still looks marvellous. That is the testament to an excellent hat design.
Right, okay.
Because you can make a complete pig's ear of the 3-row repeat, too much for my brain, and it still looks great. You can't see a problem with that hat.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, because you designed it. But anyone else looking at it would just go, oh, that looks great. This is a hat for my brother.
Yeah.
It's knitted in, I can't remember the yarn.
It was West Yorkshire Spinners.
Yes.
Something Aran, wasn't it? We've mentioned it
Tweed.
before. It was a tweedy yarn.
Yes, yes. There was tweed on the ticket.
An Aran weight. I don't think it actually is an Aran weight.
No.
It felt much thinner. It felt more like a DK, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Than an Aran weight.
And this hat is acceptable now.
Yeah, I gave it a nice block. It did look really small at first, so I gave it a nice soak and a block, and actually it blocked really well.
And the ladders aren't as bad as what they were.
Yeah, if you say so.
Well,
so look, now it's a nice size, isn't it?
It's perfect, especially when it's on someone's noggin.
Yeah, you don't want to put it on, do you?
Oh, I'd love to, yeah. I mean, it's a perfect day for having a hat on. Get my gloves out too.
Oh no, look, it fits great. Oh, don't slouch it. Dan despises slouch.
Yeah, I despise slouch with a passion.
Well, it's meant to be cuffed, so it will cuff on your brother's head, okay?
Yeah.
It looks like you've got no eyebrows now. It looks weird. Don't do that.
No, that's what the dudes in town, that's what they look.
It makes you look bald. You look completely bald.
Bold.
Oh, now look at your hair.
Oh, my hair's ruined. It's all gone wrong. I need my stylist. So that's the angel hat, designed by Kay. Free pattern.
It is a free pattern, yes.
Go get it. You'll love it.
Yes, it's fun. It's for an Aran weight.
Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
So I do have something off my needles. I've finished Bryony's gingerbread socks.
Amazing.
And here they are.
I mean, it's lovely, actually. Really lovely on it. It looks
super
like
lovely.
It looks like gingerbread.
Yeah. And one's knit up slightly different. I think it's just the way that the pattern has sort of landed. They look slightly different, but really great. And I've got tons of yarn left. I realised that when I looked at this yarn in the cake now, it reminded me of cowhide.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
It looks really cool. So I've got loads left. So it's Bird Street yarn, and it's in the I'm the Gingerbread Man colourway, and the red mini came with it as well. It was a sock set.
To me, it looks like gingerbread with icing drizzled on and then sprinkles on the top.
I think that's what it's meant to, and it works really well, doesn't it? So
Brilliant.
They're all finished. It was just a plain vanilla sock. I put in my butterfly heel and my umbrella toe.
Gorgeous.
So they're all finished, and I'm going to go and give them to Bryony now, which will be really nice.
Very exciting.
Oh
my goodness.
Socks.
What a wonderful collection of gorgeous things.
I know.
And speaking of gorgeous things, we need to get back to finish off our yarn. Oh, yes.
We do.
And then get it knitted into our cowl.
Oh, yes.
So without
and I'll
further
show
ado,
you what it looks like. It's marvellous.
Yeah, time for more Christmas as we head back to the Yarny Book Club.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of the Yarny Book Club and our lovely Christmas in July festivity that's going on. So our yarn has now cooled outside, so we're going to bring it in, we're going to get it washed. But before we do that, I'm going to get cosy in my reading corner and we're going to have a little chat about the book. Okay, so here we are in the cosy reading corner, ready just to have a little chat about this book. So yes, The Christmas Holiday by Philippa Ashley. It's only been out, I think it was 2022, and it's the story of Crystal is the main character, and it starts off the book where I think she's like a young teenager. She has quite a troubled childhood, and her Auntie Linda has been sort of like her mum through most of her life. And when she's a young teenager, she goes to the Lake District with like a school group, and whilst they're out having this walk one day, she stumbles across this beautiful old house, and she absolutely loves this house. And I don't know whether were they visiting it? I can't remember whether they were visiting it on a school trip or whether she just found it. I'm not sure. But anyway, she finds this house. It's called Holly Manor, and she loves this house. And you know, it sort of stays with her. The image of that house and the setting just stays with her all through her sort of later teens into her adulthood. And then the story then sort of skips forward to her being an adult. She's in her 30s, I think, by this stage. She's got her job as a Christmas buyer. She's got this boyfriend called Brett. Oh my goodness, you know straight away that he's not going to last. And they're off on this trip to the Lake District with the plan that they're going to stay in Holly Manor, because what's happened is her Auntie Linda passes away and leaves her a bunch of money and says to her, look, do something fun with this money. So what she does is she remembers this house and she searches for it and finds out that it's actually now a rental house that you can stay in, a holiday rental. So she decides to rent it for, I think, about 2 or 3 months.
So they're on their way there and they come a cropper basically crossing this ford. That there's this sudden sort of rainstorm and they get stuck in the middle of this river crossing, this little ford crossing. Max then comes to their rescue. Max is somebody who lives in the Lake District in like a little bothy, which is just like this sort of stone house up on the hillside. He's got a dog called Jake and he's very mysterious. He's quite grumpy at first and not very pleasant, but he ends up helping them out. And then her boyfriend Brett has to go back to London for work and you basically never see him again. So she's left there and she sort of makes her own little life there. You know, she makes friends in the local village, makes friends with Max because he's helped them out of quite a dangerous situation at the beginning of the book. And it just develops from there really, and then it's about her sort of finding out about Max and his background, because there's obviously something in his background that's made him go off to the mountains of the Lake District and live there, you know, by himself with his dog. You know, there's mountain rescues that have to take place and you know, other sort of fairly dramatic things that happen, and she ends up helping them out quite a lot, the sort of mountain rescue team. So she just makes her own life there. She absolutely loves it. And I won't tell you what ultimately happens at the end. I will keep, you know, I won't spoil that for you. But it really is just a feel-good, cosy, festive read. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's a really good one if you just want to sit down, immerse yourself in some festive fun. It is very Christmassy. You know, she decorates Holly Manor and, you know, using all of her skills in the sort of Christmas world. She's obsessed with Christmas. She lives and breathes it, you know, the whole year round. There's lots of scenes where she's actually decorating Holly Manor and I love those. You know, this Holly Manor sounds like heaven, to be honest. It just sounds absolutely beautiful and the sort of place that you would really want to go to at Christmas. It's quite a good descriptive book, I think. And then ultimately there is quite a sort of dramatic thing that happens that she has to get involved in, and that is a little bit perilous, you know. It's a bit of peril, but it ends happily, of course it does. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, would highly recommend it. Brilliant for July, brilliant for nearer to Christmas if you want to just grab a copy and save it till a bit closer to December. That's fine. So I'm going to start with the first skein that we dyed, because this one doesn't have any dark colours in. There's no chance of any dye really going into the water. So here we go with our lovely speckledy one. And look at that green, isn't it just lovely? The way that is really quite neon. And where we've added yellow on top of the red, it turns into this sort of bright orangey colour. Really pretty. So just gonna, as usual, give that a nice dunk in the water. Everything's set. And this one you can see is all these beautiful rich tones. That gold has turned some of these shades into like a bronze colour, which is beautiful. Okay, so our two skeins are all washed and dried and ready to be just looked at for a second. Oh, I'm so thrilled with how both of these have come out. We've got a brilliant contrast between the sort of more rich tones of this one and then the light, bright neon speckles of this one. So which one am I going to choose? So I spent some time actually looking at my cowl as it looks now with all of the colours in, and I'll show you that in a little bit.
and deciding which would A, look best in sequence, but also which one did I really want to knit with first. And I could have gone with either of these. Both of them look really nice, you know, as the next colour in my cowl, but I could not resist this one. So the good thing about, you know, the way that you know what I'm like about speckles and distribution of said speckles, and this skein, you know, the reason I'm looking inside and outside is we've got speckles on the outside, but we've also got speckles on the inside. So that's telling us that we've got speckles running the whole way through the skein, which is just brilliant. So I'm going to get this onto my Swift. So I'm just going to snip off the ties now that are the ones that are just keeping the skein organised. So what we need to do is look for, you'll have one end that's coming from the inside and then the other one should be coming from the outside. There we go. And you want to pull from the one that's on the outside of the skein. I'm going to thread that through, jam it in there, and then get winding. Okay, that all went well till towards the end and something a bit funky happened, but no, I think it's okay. It just when I had a sort of a loose bit, but it's all fine. It's all wound fine, absolutely fine. So there we go. Oh, it looks lovely. We get those speckles coming through. That green is a revelation to me, actually. That bright Kelly green, brilliant Kelly green. Really fantastic bright green. It looks glorious. So all ready now to start knitting into our cowl. So I will clear the decks, we'll sit down and we'll get on with that. Okay, so here we are now ready to start knitting that next colour into our lovely reading corner cowl. So I just thought it would be a good time just to have a little look at our cowl to see where we're at. So you can see we've got those 4 previous colours in there with the Miss Havisham colour as our little contrast. And I did a bit of weighing of this, of the yarn I've used already, just so I can give you an idea on how much yarn I'm using for this. So I've actually used, so far I've used about 38 grams of the Miss Havisham for the contrast sections that I've done. So I think I've just got one more of the contrast stripes to go and then the rib. So it might be that I come under 50 grams for this, but I'm guessing I've used 38. No, I mean, I think I'm going to be over 50 grams. So I think you would probably need 100 gram skein as your contrast. Each of the coloured sections, I'm using about 12 grams. So, you know, if you wanted to knit one of these afterwards, then 20 gram minis for these sections would work absolutely perfectly. You know, you can put together a lovely colour scheme with 6 20 gram minis and then 100 gram skein as your contrast. Think is just perfect, isn't it? So here we are then, all ready to start knitting our next section with this gorgeous light contemporary looking festive, I think it is, you know, to me it does say a sort of modern Christmas, and I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic knitted up, and I'm desperately wanting to knit a pair of socks in it, which I'll have masses left over to do that, so that's brilliant. So we're just going to get going now on the next section. So I'm just 1 stitch away from finishing that contrast section in the Miss Havisham, and then I'm just going to bring in my new yarn. So as we've been doing previously, this pattern, what we do for each section is it starts off with a plain knit round, and then the next round is knit 1, purl 1, and that just gives us that nice definition to each of the colour changes. And then for the coloured sections, it's a total of 20 rounds altogether, and for the contrast sections, it's 10 rounds altogether. So in this case, I'm going to knit this first round, I'm going to do knit 1, purl 1 on the second round, and then rounds 3 to 20 are just plain knit. And then I will knit in another, what will actually be the final contrast stripe, because
the next colour that we do will actually be the last one. So following that, it'll be the rib. So I'm just going to now carry on and knit through this section, and I will show you the finished section when, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like knitted up. I think it's just going to be fantastic. That's the Christmas holiday, all dyed up, finished, dried, and knitting into the lovely Reading Corner cowl. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I really hope you enjoyed that little burst of Christmas in July. I've had a lovely July actually, knitting Christmas socks, watching Christmas films, listening to Christmas books. It's been absolutely lovely. But next time when you join me, like as I've just said, it'll be the final Yarny Book Club colourway. I already know what the book is going to be. It's a great one to finish on, and it's just the perfect seasonal book as well, and I'll explain more about that when we get to that stage. So until then, get dyeing up your yarn if you want to do that, get knitting your reading cowls, and I will see you back next time for more Yarny Book Club.
What a wonderful episode. Now that was just the business, and that book sounds right up my hallmark alley.
It was a great book, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Brennan Elliott in the lead role.
Absolutely.
Lacey Chabert as the...
I can see that. Having read the book, I can definitely see Brennan Elliott as playing the part of Max. Was it Max? Yes. I always get
Jake's the dog.
Jake's the dog.
Yes.
Because Max is quite rugged and he lives in this bothy up on the side of a hill and he chops wood, and I can definitely see Brennan Elliott.
Of course, we'd have to set it though, because I'm not certain that. Maybe Brennan can pull off a Scottish accent.
They could set it in the hills of California, couldn't in mountains of California?
Yes.
In winter, that would absolutely work.
Or why don't they just be honest and say it's Canada like they all are anyway?
Yeah, they're all Canada. They're all Canada. It's all Vancouver, isn't it? It's all Canada. Yeah, I know. I've just been watching actually on Netflix. It was recommended to me by a friend, and I've just finished watching it, and I loved it. I've just finished watching Virgin River on Netflix. I don't know if anybody else has watched it, and I loved it. It was brilliant. But that is meant to be set in like Northern California in the mountains, and that is filmed in Vancouver.
Yes.
It makes me laugh, really. Everything's Vancouver, isn't it? But it's a brilliant series. I loved it.
What an episode though, and Kay has now completed that section.
Yes, I have. So here is the finished section. I've just started the last contrast section.
That's so festive.
But it's so lovely. I love how this one has knit up, however grammatically that is said. But this sort of icy blue background with those neon specks, it's just lovely. So the whole cowl now looks like this.
Wow. It's gorgeous.
And we've just got one section to go. So I've got one last contrast stripe to knit, and then it'll be the last book colour, and then a rib at the top, and it'll be done. And I love how it looks, actually. You just never know when you're creating colours. And I didn't design any of these to flow one into the other, and they don't necessarily flow, I don't think. I don't think they look like they flow. But I think it just... because it's a journey, a sort of book journey, I think it's just really nice.
It's gorgeous.
So and I've got tons of this yarn left, and I've been inspired by this yarn. I loved it so much when I was knitting it that I've actually designed a sock using this yarn.
Amazing.
And this afternoon I'm going to dye up a couple of minis. I'm going to dye up a couple of minis in the neon-y colours, but try and do it in a slightly more pastel way, if that's even possible, because I want to use a contrast colour for like cuffs and heels or whatever. So I'm going to dye up one in the red and one in the green and just see what they look like and then decide which I'm going to use. So that's going to be fun as well. So I'll talk more about that when I've got that underway. But I'm absolutely thrilled by the design. It's something that I've wanted to design, a sock design, for years. Yeah. And I've just never been able to quite get there. But on this particular day that I decided just to look at it, I just did it, and I showed it to you, and you were like, it's just brilliant. So can't wait to show you that.
So that's it. Another episode of the Yarny Book Club, all done. Yarny Book Club returns in September for its final episode.
Yes.
And what an episode it's going to be.
It's a good one.
And next time, we return to Barnard Castle to conclude the story of Elizabeth I. Oh my goodness, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Neil, Susan B. Anderson.
Lovely Susan has been at it again.
Yes.
So I was just thrilled to see this. But Susan has recently knit up a pair of my prairie socks, and she's put some kits in her shop. And I didn't know she was going to do this. It just appeared, and it was such a joy. I woke up and I saw an email because I get her newsletters, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. It's just so brilliant. So she's got, I think there might be sort of 5 or 6 different colourways where you get a full skein and a mini. And she's knit up a pair of prairie socks, and it's in like a purple and a green. It looks fantastic. But then she's got other combinations in her shop. So you can go and buy the yarn, and then you just need to get my pattern. So it might be that you've got the prairie socks pattern already, and you could just go and buy a kit from Susan to knit it up in her lovely yarn. The yarn is her, I think is it called home fingering weight? I've used it and it's beautiful. It's a lovely plump yarn, and in fact it would be fantastic for that cowl that Dan's knitting.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely perfect. It's a really lovely, woolly but soft yarn. It's fantastic. So I just wanted to mention that, and I don't imagine Susan watches this, and I've already thanked her, but just in case Susan watches it, I just wanted to say a huge thank you and just let you know that if you fancied grabbing some of Susan's yarn, it's a great price as well. Yeah. Really great price. Yeah. So that's lovely, lovely Susan.
And it's a very long-term viewers will know that Susan B. Anderson has a big... She means a lot to us because when Kay sort of started knitting again, you were very much inspired.
I was.
By Susan B. Anderson.
Yeah,
and Susan B. Anderson was very much like... She's like a Mary Berry, Delia Smith. The tippy top.
Yeah, Susan's been here with us in the knitting world, hasn't she? Since certainly the beginning of Ravelry. Yeah. And I'm certain, prior to that. And she's just always there, isn't she? Creating beautiful patterns and
So now
yarns.
For you to have her write such lovely words. I know it meant the absolute world.
Yeah, she's done this before with my designs, and I've mentioned it before when she's done it. She's put kits together, and she always says, she really loves my designs, and it's amazing to hear that from somebody that you've got such a huge amount of respect for, and thinking, oh my goodness, she's such an amazing knitter, and she's knitting my socks, and she thinks they're great, and it's just the best feeling.
And as well, what's so sort of wonderful about it is, and it's so difficult in the world that we live in now, because from an outside looking in, you would perhaps assume, oh, well, if Susan's doing that and if Kay's doing that, then there's some sort of agreement between the two of them. But Susan operates like we operate. She's recommending Kay's patterns because she's knitted them and she loves them.
Yeah.
Just like we recommend yarn or designers and it's the old-fashioned way of working. It's not this, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yeah.
That's not really, as a viewer, what I want to see is, I want to see people talking honestly about what's good and what isn't good. And that's what Susan does.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. She's fantastic. I absolutely love Susan, and just thrilled that she's used one of my patterns again.
And long-term long-term viewers will know that it was to Susan who I turned when I wanted to thank Kay for taking care of me after getting through chemo.
That's right.
And Susan sent a video.
She did.
Which was put in the show.
She did.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, so our connection with Susan goes back
deep.
a long time,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And it's just lovely, isn't it, to have those connections with people.
Special
and
little relationships that you might never have met her, but actually, you know, it's great.
I just feel like she's the sort of person that if we ever did meet in real life,
Yes.
we'd just get on so well, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
The radio show. Last week we did a Gladiator special, which people seem to love because we had an impromptu trip into a little supermarket, which was extremely small. But we spoke about Gladiator and we spoke about, you know, what we loved and what we didn't, and a little bit about the history of Gladiator, but also what we're hoping for the new film coming out in November. And that's now inspired us. We're currently going through the summer of Bond.
We are.
And we've been watching lots of Bond films, and we've been slightly surprised by lots of things. And our thoughts are perhaps not quite what the reality was when we sat down to watch them.
Yeah.
They're not quite as we remembered them.
No.
And it also raises lots of interesting topics like, you know, James Bond and his relationship with women.
Yeah, yeah.
And the way he treats women.
Yeah, it's really interesting and, you know, thought-provoking.
So we're going to talk about that in our next radio show.
We are.
Which is out next week.
We've just reached the Roger Moore era, which is very fabulous.
Yes. Roger's brilliant.
Do love Roger.
Yes.
Yes.
So radio show back next week. Already mentioned Knitability, 50th issue. It's available right now. Summer of Stitching continues.
Yes.
Oh, yes. There's been loads of Austin bags appearing because that series is now finished.
It has.
And we're actually beginning our Jane's Mitts series on the 30th of July.
That's not long at all.
First episode goes out on the 30th of July and then it runs through August.
Yes.
So that's going to be just amazing. And then, of course, the hits just keep on coming because as Summer Stitching finishes 1st of September, that's when the Waffle Socks launch.
Waffle Socks 1st of September and then Sockaween, of course. 1st of October, Sockaween. Very excited for Sockaween this year.
So we're going to need to go for a lie down. So whilst we do that, well, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
For a new episode, England and Castle Nation. So take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon.
Yes, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in